Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video I will talk about ranked, and more specifically I will give my personal top 5 good practices for ranked based on my own experience. I try to be as concise as possible so the video doesn't become overloaded. So let's get started. Ranked, okay, one of the more difficult and controversial battle modes because, yeah, it often drives people crazy. Even I sometimes lose my sanity. But aside from that, let me tell you what my number 5 of good practice is, and that is know your ships. You must know from every ship that can play in your league, you must know the basic functions. What does it do? Is it battleship, well armored, poorly armored, exposed citadel, overmatch capabilities, range of the torpedoes, consumables, especially radar and hydro. You don't have to memorize all the details and all the armor schemes by heart because there's so many ships that are in the game now, even if you pick only one tier for ranked, but you must know the basic functions, yeah, because you must of course know what you are playing, you must know what your teammates are playing, because depending on that you can have, you know, what kind of support you have or what kind of support you can give. And of course, last but not least, always assume that the enemy knows what he or she is playing. In many times this is not the case, but always assume that the enemy knows what they are doing. So for number 4, something similar, know the maps. So if you go here on the information tab, some information is displayed. So you see here, let's return to rule number 5. Ships of tier X play in 6 versus 6 in the bronze competition. And it's exactly the same for silver and gold league. So this season wargaming is very lazy. Yeah. The information of the map is not displayed here, but every time when a season starts you have a dedicated article. Now I didn't look it up for you because it's a bit far in the news or in the article list, because the current season is over in just a few weeks. But for rule number 4, in the dedicated article, Wargaming mentions what maps are played and what game modes are played. This is a small selection compared to the maps you can encounter in random games. And depending on that, you can already make a little bit of a selection of what ships are suitable for the maps that you will encounter during your ranked games. Yeah, it's important to know. Is it a large map? Small map? Islands to hide behind? Where are the cruisers hiding? Range of the radar especially? Hydro range? Can you cap without being spotted, especially in a destroyer? Are the cap points close to each other or far from each other? Ranked games, capping is much faster than in randoms. Also the points accumulate much faster. All that kind of basic stuff you should know before you start playing ranked. And on top of that, look at the minimap during play. Even I tend to tunnel vision sometimes. It's natural reflex if you're committed to a special action or a specific opponent. But knowing the maps is much more than just looking at the minimap and have a basic knowledge of situational awareness. Because in all honesty and all humility, I have the impression that half of the player base in ranked has the minimap disabled. So let's proceed to rule number 3, because that is a bit a consequence of rule number, or good practice number 5 and number 4. That is, know the meta. So for this season, whatever the league is, it is tier 10. And at the start of every ranked game, there's always a few streamers that are publishing videos with a tier list or their recommendations, because they have all the ships. Yeah, they can talk, they can share their own experience. I don't have all the premiums. Yeah, I have all the tech 3 ships, but not all the premiums, so I can make such a tier list. But the ships that I don't have, I can only do that based on my experience to play against these ships, but not to play with these ships. So that's the reason why I'm holding on a tier list and prefer to make a video the way I am doing now. But these tier lists, they have a personal touch. I have my personal preferences too. But if you compare the tier lists and the recommendations of different players, you will notice it's always the same ships that will end on the bottom of the list, and the same ships that will almost always appear top of the list. Yeah, know why that is so, or why that is the case, and act accordingly. Play the ships that are recommended. Yeah, it's ranked. It's not a beauty contest. You have to win the game. That's it. So, rule number 2, probably the most difficult to explain. Know when it is time to save your star. Yeah? Aside from a few exceptions, we've always had the principle: the losing team loses a star, except if you have scored the most basic experience, of the highest amount of basic experience in your team. Then you save your star. Losing your star is bad, because losing a star means you need to win 2 games in a row to reach the position that you want to reach before losing that game. Yeah? If you can save your star, you have to win only 1 game to reach the position that you wanted to reach prior to playing this game, because I want to win the game. Yeah, whenever I start, I always want to win, but it's not always the case. You cannot win every game in rank. This is impossible, no matter how good of a unicorn player you are. Now, the moment when you play to save your star, or the moment when you have to do this, is extremely subjective and is based on experience. Yeah, let me tell you or talk about a few examples. Yeah, what are these behaviors? What are these events? What are these actions that tell me, oh, it's time to save my star? Yeah. A fine example is players who already complain about the matchmaking in the beginning. Yeah. If you see that kind of players in chat, yeah, start thinking about saving your star, because that kind of players very often will not contribute a lot to your team. There's also very often the destroyer players. Doesn't matter bronze, silver or gold league. Yeah. Even in gold league you find that kind of destroyer players that just rush towards the middle, ask for help, and the enemy team has 3 radar ships. So everyone knows what happens. Yeah. I don't support that kind of players. I just make use of the little bit of scouting that they provide, the few moments that they are alive, and use that to deal damage, maybe try to cap a flag or a point, maybe to shoot down some planes, because those 3 actions are the best way to save your star. Yeah, you need to score basic experience, and that is best done by shooting other players, by shooting planes, and by capping points. There's other sources of basic XP, but the three that I just mentioned are the most important. I also provide an example of when not to go on, not to go too fast into save the star mode. Very often, a ranked game is played on two flanks. Yeah, the team splits. One goes east, the other goes west. The western flank collapses, but sometimes the east flank wins for your team. But there is a delay of a few minutes between the two, or the results of the two flanks. It's still game on in that case. Yeah? Don't give up too fast. Don't be the battleship player that starts sniping in a Größer Kurfürst right from the start. Don't be that kind of player. Don't give up too fast. Yeah. In case that you have this situation with one flank crumbles, the other emerges victorious, it's still game on, even if the other team has had more time to reposition, to heal, to take position, etc. You can still pull off the win. Because again, only winning matters. Not the way that you win matters. You can perfectly win ranked whilst completing the pacifist challenge, whilst completing, in this case, the tier 10, the Zao challenge, by scoring 5 Krakens in a row. It doesn't matter. It's the star that matters. So, and now we finally come at rule number 1, very often mentioned by top players, and in fact, by following rule number 1 or paying attention to that, you pretty much, or you pretty often, can evade or avoid going too fast in save the star mode. And that rule number 1 is have patience. Yeah, it makes no sense to go as a destroyer player in a straight line towards the middle cap, ask for support, and then getting melted within 1 minute of the game, within the first minute of the engagement. Yeah, that's not patience. Yeah, try to know where the other players are, where the other team is. If you see that a point is captured very fast or much faster than you do, then you know they have an extra ship in that cap. If there is a CV, of course, wait for the CV to scout the enemy team. Are they going all on one flank? Are they splitting up? Is it a 50-50 split? Can you attack? Can you defend? Or do you have to go in defensive mode because you're outnumbered? That kind of stuff. Just the basic knowledge or the basic behavior of waiting for the intel and know what is going on, that is, I think, the best thing that you can have in ranked games. This is the rule that made me a much better player in ranked. And I can speak from experience because I play ranked for a long time, but I'm not a top player. Yeah, I never ranked out in the old system. In the new system, I reached gold league a few times, but I never ranked out in gold. So that is what I want to say. It's not something forced. It is something that I've learned from the top players. So I hope that this short video helps you, or may help you in becoming a bit better in ranked. I hope it made some sense, that you have a bit of good feeling about this video. Comments and questions on YouTube are always appreciated. Thanks very much.